Hello, my delicious co-creators. Lilou here. I'm in Orlando today in Florida on the Juicy Living Tour with Michael Cooley. Hello.
Hello, Lilou. Pleasure to meet with you. Pleasure to be here today.
Thank you. Thank you for flying over. I know you had business here, but you have such a story, and it's such a juicy story. You need to hear this, and especially for people going through a hard time. Anything is possible.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the story of rock bottom. That's why I wrote the book. I just shouldn't be this fortunate today. And since I am, I want to use my story to see if I can help others.
What's really interesting is that despite what we're confronted to in our childhood and growing up, there is something exceptional. I mean, anything is possible in life. Tell us how you grew up, and when you found yourself in the streets, you lived in the streets. Tell us about that life.
I did. From my earliest memory, I was raised in two households. My mother and father were separated. My mother lived in St. Louis, Missouri, and my father lived down in Texas. He remarried, and as I grew up as a child, I moved to my new home down in Texas with my new stepfamily, and it was early on, 4, 5, 6 years old, I started experiencing physical, emotional abuse, and as a little kid, and then on the other side, I would go to my mother's up in St. Louis, and she was unfortunately a raging alcoholic. I had 9 different stepfathers, where there was also physical, mental abuse, and as a result of growing up, it really my life functioning as a child was much different than a normal childhood, and as a result, I didn't go to the same elementary school 2 years in a row. I always was going from school to school, moving from place to place, moving from family to family. When one parent didn't want to deal with me, they would send me down to the other one, and back and forth. And
were you a bad boy?
I guess in some light, it could be assumed I was bad. I didn't really realize it because there was physical abuse that kept happening.
Like beating up? Or?
Yeah. So, for example, like one day I would wake up as a kid and go outside and play, and my stepmother would come out and break a branch off a rose bush with all the thorns and just start beating my little brother and me till our legs bled. And there was other times where she was jealous of my mother, so she would whip us and flog us with belts to go to, so we wouldn't tell our mom what we were going through. It was just ongoing, relentless abuse for until I was 15, when I had had enough. And
until 15, nobody was really protecting you. There was nobody to do that. You were protecting your little brother, I guess, too. And what was going on through your mind?
That's what it was about. It was about I was protecting him, but I was going through the abuse, and I felt that my life was going to end up just in a horrible way, staying in these two families. So I left at 15, left home, never went back. From there, I lived on the streets. I found a new family. That family turned out to be a street gang.
It was homeless. You were living in which conditions?
I was homeless. I was hitchhiking all over the country. I was borrowing and stealing to get money to live, for food. I was living in alleyways, on rooftops, trying to stay out of the cold, trying to find heated places to stay.
It gets cold there. It gets really cold, huh?
Where I was at up in St. Louis, when I went back up to St. Louis and living on the streets there, there were some cold winters, and I was in trouble with the law. I was in trouble with gangs. I started experimenting with drugs and alcohol.
What type of drugs?
You name it.
Okay.
In fact, when I speak to groups today, right, I'll speak to kids, or I'll speak to prisons or detention centers. I would tell them that there's not a drug you can talk about that you've done that I haven't experienced, and I could tell stories of each one and what they did to my life, and it just further pulled me down to the rock bottom point. And then
how long was that for?
So from the time from when I was about 15 till I was in my early 20s. And then I met a woman. We got married for all the wrong reasons. She was an alcoholic, and I ended up leaving that situation and ended up on the streets again. Here I am in my mid-20s, living out of my car, getting cleaned up at a rest stop, trying to get enough money to put gas in the car, driving all around.
Doing little jobs too? Or?
I was. I mean, one of my saving grace was the fact that I could always get a job. So whether it be working as a fry cook or working as a bag boy in a grocery store, whatever it was, I would go get a job, and I would do well because that was kind of my release from my family situation and from my personal situation.
But I guess when you have the whole drug and the whole alcohol thing and you're cold, then there is or integrity issue, or you can be late, or were you ever in that kind of foggy situations where you had to leave situations or leave jobs that were too that just it didn't work out?
Usually if I left a job, it was because I made some bad choices, either under drugs or alcohol, and I was incarcerated. I got arrested and couldn't go into work, and so being in lockup, you would have to deal with that, and I would lose jobs that way, and it just seemed like one thing after another happened. I had nobody wanted anything.
I want you to get a little bit closer, because we're drifting.
Okay, I want to be personal here.
Intimate and personal. This is good. We're getting to the core of it.
Absolutely. So so what happened with the rock bottom story is I'd reached this point where nobody wanted anything to do with me. I mean, I was homeless. My hair was down to my waist. I was unkept. I was unclean. Nobody would open the door for me. Everybody would hide from me. My family didn't want anything to do with me.
What's your little brother?
My little brother was going through his own challenges. He was in drug rehab. He was going through issues of getting in trouble, traveling all over, staying with people. And he continued to have his relationships that allowed him to pull himself forward. I had lost all of my relationships. And I reached a point where that was that crossroad in life where I had to make a decision that I was either going to have a death wish to end my life, end up incarcerated for life, or end up going insane. Or there was this other road that I'd never been down before, as I mentioned, and where I didn't know anybody. But it was the road that I took, and I ended up answering a little ad in a newspaper for a mailroom, assistant. And it turned out that mailroom assistant was a consulting firm, for a financial consulting firm in Dallas. And I ended up getting the job at minimum wage, working there. And from there, kind of the story changed. And
what made it change, though? What made it so that you decided to take that job? Was that another job, or you already had the intuition or feeling that this was different than any other one?
Sure. I had a job, and what happened was the job they ended up selling the company, and they ended up laying everybody off. Eventually, I found my way into this little ad, and there was just something about it that made me respond to it. And when I got there to the office, it's like everything changed from there. And part of the reason is the incredible people that were at this company.
But what's incredible is that you stepped in that new paradigm, where you were before and where you were there. Did you ever, were you even praying or asking or had an intent of something different, or it's just it really kind of, you just kind of drifted there and you were lucky? And
just to be clear, you pray a lot. Your faith, whatever it be, you pray a lot for things to change, and when they don't, you start giving up a little bit more. So yeah, there was prayer involved with my decision to go to work for this company, but it was just answering an ad and trying to get a job and trying to survive. And it's amazing how fate would lead you. And that's what happened in this case. And once I was there, one of the keys to going from the streets to success in my life was the fact that I met some really incredible people who cared about me unconditionally, who didn't care what my past was. They only knew what my future could be. Like angels. Yeah, like angels, and I've continued to meet them throughout my life. And it may be a business leader or a business executive, but it may also be a young lady living in an abused homeless shelter, or it may be a homeless gentleman that you meet in your speaking engagements, or it may be a 16-year-old girl who already has a 3-year-old child, and they just need some inspiration to move forward. They need some guidance, because
at that time you were not able to provide inspiration. They were the one providing.
Absolutely not. But what happened is, from that point, I met people who knew how. What happened was I actually learned how to be human again, because I had lost the ability to be human. I was an animal in a cage full of rage, and that just continued for years and years and years. So I was at rock bottom, and if it wasn't for the incredible people who picked me up, taught me how to go back to school, taught me how to...
Went back to school to learn?
I went back to school, got my degree in business administration. And at this same company, I would work during the day. I would leave there at 5 or 6 at night, run to my classes at college until 10 o'clock at night, and then on the weekends I would be studying. And so it kind of took me out of my partying mode and away from all of those things, and kind of realigned my priorities and my focus. So the CEO of this company, Robert Hall, I started to emulate who he was and try to learn from him, because I was so completely impressed with his heart for his company and for his people. And I just made a commitment to him privately, to myself, that I was going to do everything I could to help him make that company successful. So from that mailroom position, 10 years later, I was the senior vice president of that financial consulting firm.
And never was it starting to be too good and you thought, oh my God, the drugs or the alcohol or something just popped back in because you wanted to pull yourself back down? Did you ever felt that?
The temptations do not go away. Yeah. They were always there. They were in front of me. The drugs got more expensive that were in front of me. The drug of choice, the drug of the day, the drug that was out there. I mean, it was in front of me, but my commitment to this CEO, to this company, and now to the employees that were my colleagues, I just couldn't let them down. They became a family in a sense to me that I did not have.
What's beautiful is that people commitment, that's what pulled you out.
Yeah, I mean, every day it's what drives me too. And now it's my family, my beautiful wife, and my two children that I have that are growing up and now teenagers. I mean, every day my commitment is to stay on target for them. And now, with the release of Rock Bottom, the book, I've kind of instilled that commitment in my life that, I mean, if I fall back now, what have I done? I've told this incredible story that apparently I have a commitment to, the people I speak to, the people I help, the employees, the staff that I work with, the ownership of the company. I mean, I want to refuse to fail at every level for that reason. So that's what drives me.
And then how did Quinlan started then, if you were working for this man?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was working for a company called Action Systems. They ended up selling the company, and then I was recruited to work for a healthcare company called Chart One, which was a medical records management company. And I was working there for 5 years. And then I was discovered, recruited out of Dallas to Providence, where the owner of this company was looking to retire, and he wanted somebody to head it up. So he knew of my background. He, in terms of my education, my career as senior vice president, senior director of administration, he knew my experience in healthcare and records management. He knew that background, but he
knew your story?
He did not know my story until before the release of the book. I went and met with him and sat down, knowing that this was the risk that I was going to take. That he may not want this tied to the company name, the family name.
Especially with the link with the hospitals and the health and all of it.
Absolutely, with everybody's health, mental health, physical health, and all that, and it hit home, right? But I told myself that I put this out here, I wasn't going to do it halfway. I had to tell the story, and I had to accept whatever people thought, whatever their feelings were, whatever their opinions were, that's what they were, and I wasn't going to judge in that regard. But today, you know, this I just completed 6 years as the CEO of the company, and we've had some really good success, and that success comes from, once again, it's not about me as much as it is the people that I'm with. I mean, you surround yourself with people who are experts at what they do, and as a result, I basically ride their coattails, right, to success. And I do what I can to try to use my experience and my background, sometimes my street smarts, and my refusal to fail, because I know what rock bottom's like. And I don't want our company to go through rock bottom. I don't want my family to go through rock bottom. And I felt so fortunate one day when my daughter was born, and I was looking in the mirror, and I was saying to myself that, why did this happen for me? I went through everything you could possibly imagine at rock bottom, and then now I have all the success I could ever possibly dream of. And as I looked at my reflection, it was at that point that I realized that I should use my story, my life, as an example to see if it can help others. And so that's the story of rock bottom, why I put the book out there, because when I speak, I get out in front of people. I want to tell the story, and I speak to universities and business leaders as well as homeless shelters and prisons, and I try to use my story to basically my past to help people change their futures.
So what do you tell to people in prisons, because they're not surrounded really, they're surrounded by other people that are, you know, challenged. So how does that work?
That's a great story. In fact, when I do speak to the prisons, and some of the inmates will be getting out, some of them will never get out. Some of them are the most hardened criminals that will never get out. But I do say that you can be a part of society even inside the prison walls. I mean, every day you wake up, you can make a commitment to change. You can get your education in prison. You can write a book in prison, right? You can contribute to the prison in a job-wise. It's just so much, your life will be so much better than living with the hate, the anger, and feeling that you were wronged, whatever your situation is. And in that story that I tell, they have me sometimes come out and do the keynote to the prisons when they graduate from, you know, getting a degree in something, and you'll have 200 or 300 prisoners out there, and I say, this is one of your defining moments. Even if you're in here forever, you accomplished something in that regard. And so that's the inspiration I try to give to the prisoners, because I've been there. I know what it was like to be behind those walls and not knowing if this was going to be your future or not.
Can we find gratitude in those moments, in those difficult moments? Because a lot of speakers or teachers speak about gratitude and how important it is to sometimes be grateful for those small things that we don't see. Is that something that you were able to do, or that could be a spark for some, even when things seems really, really, really bad?
Yeah, when there's those hopeless moments, you know, they sometimes ask me, you know, why didn't you just give up? Why didn't you just curl up and die? And believe me, I always thought about that. And if it was me, they would say, you know, I would just cry. And I said there were many nights that I did, and I did not know what the future was going to hold. And when I look back at it now, the gratitude is overwhelming, overflowing. That, you know, while I wouldn't want anybody to go through that, and I wouldn't want to go through that again, to have survived that and be able to have a message today is every day I wake up blessed, fortunate, and as lucky as I can be. And the other part that I had to do to get right is I had to show the forgiveness. Yeah. There was my stepmother who abused me for over a decade. I mean, and her stepsons who were older than me that abused me for over a decade. When I achieved my success, I actually wrote her a Mother's Day card. And in the Mother's Day card, I asked her to forgive me, that I don't know what it was that caused me to be so bad that she felt that she had to punish me for all of those years, but I just wanted her to forgive me. She acknowledged receiving the card, but she never acknowledged anything in it. And people said, well, doesn't that make you angry? I said, no, because it was at that point I had forgiven, truly from my heart forgiven, and let go, and was able to move on.
Because forgiveness, we do forgiveness. We give forgiveness to ourselves. It's mainly because by holding the other person accountable, then we make our own life miserable. But when we're able to forgive, it's one of the most beautiful, liberating things.
And you're so right, and it is so true. And if anybody knows this is me, life is too short to be carrying around chips on your shoulder. And I had them. I was full of anger.
More than chips, huh?
Yeah, more than chips. I had chains on my ankles, all that. But yeah, again, just whether it be anger about the system, or whether it be anger about a job or about my family or about my friends or about everybody not caring about me, I realized that if I was going to bring my life back, it was going to be up to me and nobody else. And I had to let go of all of those petty things and focus on the future and moving forward. And so
it's really a choice.
It absolutely is a choice, and I believe everything is a choice, whether it be where you work at for a job, whether you like your job or not, it's a choice for you to be there. Whether
a relationship.
Yeah, a relationship. If you're in an abusive relationship, it's a choice. But I do also understand how hard sometimes it is to get out of those abusive relationships. As a child, I one time had a CEO stand up when I spoke and told me she was physically ill and angry that I did not try to get out of that abusive relationship as a child. You're 7 or 8 years old, right? But that's all you knew, But I did not judge, and I knew that impacted her in a very powerful way, that she was going to think about that when she left, and that's all you can do.
I feel that unless you love yourself or have respect for yourself, we're all at a different level of abusive relationship, and we accept it. So there's different degrees of abuse. Sometimes it's verbal, sometimes it's physical, sometimes it's as a kid, sometimes it's beating up. A lot of women are beaten up throughout the whole world by their husband. And what it takes is really stepping out in the unknown. That's super scary.
That is that crossroads, going down that road that is unknown to you, and that's kind of where I went, and it was scary. And even to this day, because of your past, you still have your past you carry forward, and part of that past included I've developed an insecurity in myself. Right, because I never felt I could do anything right. When you're always told you're never going to be anything, I wish you were never born, I want you out of my life, I wish you'd just leave. When you hear all of those things, as a kid, teenager, and adult, it continues to wear at you where it's hard to overcome. However, it's also those experiences that have changed my life for the better too, where I know what it's like to be like that. I know that I have a refusal to fail because I know what the worst is, and I know how to appreciate a beautiful day or an incredible person I meet or an incredible book I read. I just know that I'm here today, that I'm able to do that. It's the gratitude and appreciation that I never thought I would witness.
Who do you thank?
Well, once again, it starts at the highest level with my faith, in what I believe, and it's a personal relationship in that regard. But every day I think there's people that I meet along the way that have impacted my life, that I know were put in front of me because of my faith, and that continues to this day. So whether it be my wife, whether it be my children, whether it be my coworkers, whether it be the business leaders I've met, whether it be having a book signing, and I had spoken at a school, a low-income school, weeks earlier, and to have a young lady show up at my book signing with her 3-year-old son, who took 3 buses to get to the book signing because she wanted her son to meet a positive male role model at 3 years old. And she came all that way. That's who I thank for doing that, and that's why I do this. And so there's things I can't give enough thanks because there's so much of it to go around every day.
What's your wish? What's your biggest wish, or why do you do all this, and what do you want to see in the world?
Well, if I had it the way I wanted it, there would be the ability for my story to resonate throughout the country, and thanks to you, maybe throughout even international.
For sure, there it goes.
Right, there it is, all out there. So now, if I thought it was local, it's now gone international.
Definitely international at this stage.
Right, so it's out there, and I just, here's the thing, right? A lot of what I heard growing up was, whenever, you know, one of my friends would have a job, and the others wouldn't, his other friends would have a job, you know, you would hear things like, people only want to use me. They only want to use me when I have a job, or when I have money, or when I'm paying for everything, or when they want to use me to get a ride somewhere. Everybody's always using me. I heard it from my mom. Everybody's trying to use me, kids using me. But here's what I say, right? Right now, I want people to use me. Just use me up. So I have been, wherever I can possibly find the time, I have been traveling, trying to get the word out there, because it has impacted people and the choices they make and the change that they want to make in their life. And so I think the story as a whole, I hope, will be an inspiration to say, no matter what your circumstances are, right, you can take it from rock bottom to whatever success you want. And right now I have a focus of this company and this business to build it. I have a focus of kids I have to raise, and a family I have to show a life to, because I tell my daughter, I feel so blessed that I tell my daughter that she'll never know the back of the hand. She'll never know what it's like to not be loved, unconditionally, for somebody not to be there. No matter what our circumstances, she'll always have parents and family that love and care about her. And I want other people to know that too, that there's always people out there that will be that way. And I think my story helps send that message. And so whether I'm speaking to business leaders or well-off universities, they're inspired about what they don't see. That's the reason they're doing this. I spoke at a university, at a criminal justice department. And at this criminal justice, these students were studying criminal justice and everything related to it, 30-plus students. They gave me a... The professor who I knew gave them a thesis question for them to study about a story of a guy and his background, about the abuse, about the mental, emotional, sexual, physical abuse for 15 years, about being in gangs and drugs and incarceration and living on the streets and being homeless. The question was, what do you think happened to Mike, that person? Because these were future judges, law enforcement, police officers, attorneys. They were all there, and they took this class, these students did, and they took this test. And then on the last day of class, they did the study, and then he had a speaker come in, and a speaker came in to talk about kind of the business of criminal justice, and when you're out there, and about doing a business and doing a job, and speak about that, and about, this was a leader of a company, and he came in and presented to it. Well, imagine their surprise when that business leader that came in was actually the person from their thesis. So it was the story of my past, and he didn't tell them what I turned out to be. So when I got up there and I told the story about my business background, to the point of I got my degree, and here's what I did with my business career. When I got done with that, the professor said, "This is Mike." And they said, "Yeah, I know." He introduced himself as Mike. And, "No, Mike from your thesis question. You know, the one that every single one of you said died from society. This is Mike." There were shrieking, there was crying, there was all of that. And my point is that there's people that may have everything in the world that can now give a second chance in the criminal justice system. There are future criminal justice leaders out there who are going to think twice about that. And so that's the other side of rock bottom. Speaking into business leaders that may have all the money in the world, it may all be about the bottom line, but at the end of the day, they're as lost inside without a purpose as possible. And I would love to see them doing some of the similar kinds of things as I would like to do. So that's what I'd like to do, is match the haves with the have-nots and see what we might be able to do with this crazy world.
My last question is about success. So how do you define success?
I think success is defined in many ways. I thought I knew what success was when I built my career, you know, and when I got my home, and I thought that was success, to come where I come from, to have a big house and cars and family and friends and all that. I thought that was success. But the true success today is what I feel in my heart when I get in front of people, and when I speak to people, and when I see somebody move and inspired to go out and make a difference. That's when I feel successful myself. And I think to get there, one of the things that I think is a key is who you surround yourself with. You know, the kind of people. Are you hanging with the same friends that you were hanging with when you're in trouble all the time and now nobody's doing well? Or are you reaching out and you're finding people that really care from the heart, that can help you and inspire you and energize you and feed you positively? And that has been kind of the key to my success. And I think everybody's going to define success in their own way. And there's nothing wrong with that. So when I say it's the streets of success, success is whatever you define success is. This is just how I define success.
I feel the success moment was when, reaching what you had reached, you decided to be authentic and reveal your own story regardless, unconditionally, because that was inside of you and you had the courage to do that and maybe lose everything again. But that was, you were true to yourself, to your soul.
And it was one of the hardest decisions to make, and one that I look back a couple of years later when I started writing the book as a journal to my daughter when she was born. I mean, almost from that day. It's 10 years in the making. I started writing it, and then being insecure, I never thought a publisher would pick it up, but my wife read it. The CEO that I mentioned, he had read it. There had been people that had read the journal and said, this should be more in a journal. It should reach more people. So I sent it to publishers, and I didn't expect anything to come back, but surprisingly, the founder of Tate Publishing, Dr. Richard Tate, contacted me and sent me a very heartfelt letter about the story, and they picked up the book and put it out there. And so now I knew it was going to be out there for everybody to read. And it honestly is only about half the story. The real story still continues. It's kind of the story of two halves of my life, right? I'm 50, and so the first 25 years were living hell. The second 25 years was building a life and becoming human again. And then now there's the future, and the future is to just see how many people's lives I can help and impact with the story, and with hopefully just enriching people's lives in one way or another.
Beautiful. I'm so happy we got to meet. I'm so happy to share this story with as many people as possible. With you, my beautiful co-creators, wherever you are around the world, please share this. This is so inspiring, so uplifting. I know you had tears in your eyes. I know that you were moved and inspired. Please send this to people you know that need to hear this today. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you so much, Lilou. I really, really appreciate it.
Much love, my delicious co-creators from Orlando, from Mickey's country. Walt Disney. Bye-bye.
Thanks.